Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is a space where we have honest conversations about courage, clarity, and choosing yourself, even when it feels uncomfortable. So, today is really especially for those of you who know that you are capable, but you feel that you've been giving your brilliance to systems that undervalue yourself, really for those who feel pulled to do more and to be more and to build something of your own. But fear keeps asking you or telling you, is it too late? Are you late for this? So, my guest today proves that it's not. She is a strategic advisor, a serial entrepreneur, and a leader who says yes to owning her own expertise after more than 2 decades of building success for others. In her own words, her yes moment was simple but powerful, and that was in owning her own expertise. I am honored today to welcome Sasha Nelson. Sasha, a little bit about her before I bring her to the screen. Sasha is the owner, the CEO of Economic Catalyst and Economic Recovery Core Fellow, whose work helps communities to navigate major economic transition and whose personal journey shows us what's possible when you stop waiting for permission. And I am so excited to have her here with us today, everyone. Please help me in welcoming Sasha Nelson. Sasha, welcome to the Power of Yes. We're so excited and glad to have you here. You described your yes moment as owning your expertise. So for a moment, I want you to take us back to the season in your life where you were in a secure academic role, but something wasn't sitting right. What was happening internally before you made that decision to leave? What was going on?
Thanks, Servola. It's great to be here with you today. And taking you all back. So I would say in the fall of 2022, I was at that point in yet another career path where I had accelerated in the first few years. And then I hit this invisible wall. And of course, we always attribute systemic difficulties to things like a glass ceiling. But what I learned in the months to come is that the wall was inside myself, and that what I needed to do was break through my own barriers, say yes to really taking a chance on me. And so, what happens next is that in the fall of 2022, I was starting to think about what was next for me in terms of the climb through the academic career ladder, programming, all of those things. And I was helping the Colorado State Office of Just Transition with surveys for coal mine workers. We were collecting surveys, doing the data input, and then in the winter, I guess, of February 2023, it was very clear in my mind, a Monday, the 28th of February, incredibly cold here in Colorado, snow and ice everywhere. We had gone to the mine, the late mine shift, in order to validate this survey with mine workers who were going to be impacted with a known transition from fossil fuel to something new. And we did that successfully. It was difficult conversation, but nevertheless, we had some validation of those survey results so we could start to form a plan of support for workers and their families. And then we arrived back, did a quick debrief. On my way out the door, as I was nearing my vehicle to go home, I didn't see the patch of black ice right in front of me. We can we can attribute that to exhaustion, the lighting at very dark nights, very dark parking lots. But regardless of the full why, I fell, and I fell forward onto both of my palms, breaking both my hands, my arms, and my wrists. So now I have two broken arms in multiple places, and was really told to by the universe to take a break and reconsider my life choices. And it's at that moment that I began this transformation of going from a W 2 job, helping somebody else build resources to develop programs, to becoming an entrepreneur. and developing multiple small businesses to where they are today.
Oh, wow, man. What a powerful, powerful story. And talk about like being up against the odds and really utilizing your life experience to take that moment to reflect and to think about what am I doing? Where do I want to be? Where do I want to go? Now, you said you've spent years driving results, authoring statewide surveys, leading workforce initiatives, securing funding, and yet you still felt undervalued. What was the concrete turning point that made you say, I'm done building for others. Now I want to build my own legacy?
Right. Well, I think that at the heart of it for me was this very visceral fear. I am from a family that has experienced generational poverty. I was the very first in my family to graduate high school and college and to go from one to the other. So that was a big milestone for my family. But, we didn't really know what that meant. Just get an education, break these systemic cycles in our family of poverty, of women who would get married and were not and have children young and kind of a trap in this cycle of a layer of society that struggles. And my family wanted more, more for me, more for future generations. They really wanted to see us succeed and really develop ourselves to the fullest extent possible. And that was a lot of pressure, and I felt that the way to rise up to the challenge was through normal career structures. You get a good job and a good organization, and you work your way up the hard way, steadily, demonstrating your value, etcetera. And we know now that's somewhat old-fashioned and not the only way to really get ahead and to transform yourself. But I was still caught in that, mindset that I was always so worried about being able to provide myself my own paycheck that I lost sight of the fact that I was already doing that plus 10, 20xing my paycheck for other organizations, only to have those organizations repeatedly fail me when it came right down to it. In the case of the college, they a few months after my arms had been broken, first of all, they asked me to go right back to work, and that was not possible. My family in reflection jokes that it took breaking both of my arms to really make me stop working. When you're a servant leader, you just lean in and you do what you need to do to help your community out. But that wasn't serving me anymore, and it was really, by necessity of taking a break, making myself reflect on the direction I was going, what I had built for others and for myself at that point, and some very startling, you know, moments in that process. For example, I did quick calculations about our retirement savings and where we were at the time and what we would have to live on if we could exit the working world. And the truth was that there wasn't a sustainable path towards an exit unless we made some radical changes in the quality and standard of our life and our resources. So that was a really, alerting. And I projected, well, what if I accelerate through this career track and I go from I was then dean of workforce for a community college. What if I step up and run down a vice presidency? What does that look like for me? And how about the next level? If I obtain the top of that career trajectory, president of a community college, what would that look like for us? And still, we would have to cut our quality of life in drastic measures, may not even be able to ever conceive of retirement. And that was very startling. I'd done everything the right way. I'd followed these paths. I built wealth and prosperity and programs for several other organizations, but I was looking at a future where I had very little. And I thought, that's not right. Something needs to change. So we began a plan forward and paving that path forward by reconceiving a couple of businesses we already had and starting a passion project. And then again, a few months later, I was offered a contract that simply did not reflect my performance or my knowledge of the value that I was bringing. And it was offered with 11 business days to sign on the dotted line. And
Right.
felt I felt in that moment that this was again an organization that recognized the value in me, but would not recognize that value with financial resources and means and support, and was saying to me that we know you need the job. We know
Mm,
that we have you committed to the work that you're doing. And here's the contract that you need to agree to in order to have that stability in your life. And for the first time, I said, I'm not going to trade the illusion of security in a
mm,
workplace that doesn't value me in exchange for, that stability and not facing fear that I had held throughout all my adult life and my career. And so I finally said yes, Servola. And I said, the only thing I really have to fear is the hustle, right?
right.
And if I
Right.
can leave all of the work stress behind me, all of this, internal struggle for managing up, managing from the side, managing, internally, if I can change all of that and just have the stress of the hustle, I think I'm up for that. I'm gonna give it a go.
Wow.
And so I leaned in and I raced for it hard. Now, mind you, a few months later in August of that year, I looked at my bank account and I had 33 cents.
Yes.
I hadn't done that pour since high school babysitting days, and I thought, "What have I done to myself and my family?" It was a temporary thing. We rallied some resources.
Right.
We hung in there and hung on, and within less than a year later, in the beginning of 2024, when we met as part of the Economic Recovery Corps process, I had
Yes.
earned back the dean's salary. I
Wow.
was efforting two successful businesses and two that are not getting the attention that they need to thrive, but that's okay. They're still
Mhm.
there. They're still ticking along.
There we go.
Um, and I felt validated. Now we're getting ready to scale and grow into this next year. And that is an exciting and also a little scary time, but I'm leaning in and betting on myself, Servola.
I love this, and there's so much to unpack in your story there because number one, I love the honesty because courage doesn't mean fear disappears. You continue to move even in the face of the fear. I mean, you've been very transparent about the financial reality of the leap that you took. And at one point, you looked at that bank account and saw 33 cents. That's a moment that would stop any person in their tracks. I mean, when I hear your story, it's very similar to some of the steps that I went through in my journey to say yes. And I think that a lot of people don't hear this side of the story, or they hear about it and they're like, well, they see you on the other side of that. And so they're like, oh my God, like, but you have all of this and all of this is working in your favor. But I think about all of those moments, like the things that are going through your mind when you really had to push past that physical panic and stay committed to your yes. And thinking about, man, 33 cents in the bank and my family needs this. But knowing that if you believe, like I call it betting on yourself, right? If you could bet on yourself and recognize that if you let go of those golden handcuffs, the golden handcuffs that look so good, but they're holding you in a sense tied to something that looks great, but you know that at the end of the day is still holding you captive and still not valuing everything that's inside of you, then you're really not betting on all of what's inside of that potential, that capability. So to me, I'm excited about what you shared. And I want us to go a little bit into how you push past. I mean, looking at the finances, there are plenty of people right now. There's probably a woman watching this right now who have been stuck because of the financial responsibility, their families, their household, their obligation. But based upon your experience, what is your best advice for navigating those early, scary financial moments without retreating back to safety? What were some of those things that you utilize in order to navigate that? Please share.
Sure. There are a couple of things. I mean, first and foremost, Servola, I think because of the chaos and the rush to make this big pivot in my life, It's made me a better business coach when I'm having one-on-one conversations with businesses. I am very upfront and just say, "Look, don't do it the way I did. If you can avoid doing it
I
the way I
love
did it, please, here's some really hard lessons. Don't get to the point where
it.
you have 33 cents in your bank account, right? That is not
You know?
I think that the rest of that punchline though is I've always had backup plans upon backup
Yeah.
plans upon backup plans. And so go in really clear-sighted and know part of that is you're going to have moments of pure fear and panic. And something that a coach of mine has taught me is that when you don't have the courage of your own, that's something you can borrow. Borrow the courage of
Yes.
others. Borrow the belief that other people have in you and look for those supporters, true supporters. Look for those moments as well. And I also play a fear game. What's scarier, going back into a W 2 world at this point or leaning in and managing through the really hard stuff until we come out the other side and continuing to bet on me, on my family, on my amazing husband. But try not to exit if you don't have to in a chaotic, crazy way. There are better ways. And we had set that up in March of 2023. We determined, okay, we can't retire under any scenario by which I continue to move through an academic career path. So we know it's probably not ideal to invest a ton more in trying to win a VP position or a presidential position. Those are really hard campaigns to
Right.
win. And so, right. So what are those options? And we started to rebuild businesses and reimagine them. And we had a plan and we thought a year or two relying on the steady income from the college that would see us through the trickiest times and give me opportunity to learn to be a full-on boss and also to retool all our finances and everything geared
Mhm.
towards that. And that succession plan was really solid. We're just very fortunate when things were offered that just I couldn't accept, in part because it would have killed that academic career. And that's not a plan B. If everything else fails, you can always re-enter into these other former career paths, right? As long as my reputation is intact, as long as I demonstrate with the resume that I was giving incredible quality, and I was, no fault of my
Right.
own for this particular change that was offered. And I just couldn't make it. I needed to make the pivot hard and fast. I do not recommend doing it that way.
But, I love what you said there though, because I think a lot of times especially when people hear me say, yes, 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 they're thinking, oh my gosh, she's just being unrealistic. But here's the reality. I talk about this in my book, Dump the Junk, but when you are saying yes to something, you're also saying no to something else. And I think it's so important for us to recognize when you say yes to your potential, your future, your purpose, when you lean in, as you said, to your calling, so to speak, and recognize that you're moving forward, even in the face of fear, right? You're saying no to the fear, but yes to your purpose and yes to what that future could really look like. And I think that a lot of people, when they get stuck in these places, they're like, I don't know what to do. But the reality is that if you could say yes, even in the face of the fear, say yes to your purpose and yes to that next step, you're saying no to letting fear control your life and no to the possibility of being stuck in a stagnant place. When I think about your story and how it really is catalytic, I think that some things are unavoidable. Like you said, oh, I wouldn't recommend you do it the way that I did it. And I recognize that as a serial entrepreneur myself. I'm like, oh, there's some things that I've done. Like, child, don't do this. Like, don't put yourself in this position. Don't go this direction. But I also want to help those who may be in that spot where they've made that decision and they're kind of in that valley before they get right back up to the mountain, right? They're like, oh crap, I just made this decision. It is not looking like the way that I thought it was going to be. Because I know for me in 2018, when I made that journey and I said, hey, I'm stepping away from the federal government and I am going heads in. I'm gonna, bet on myself. I had this whole plan and everything looked like it was working in there and it looked great until the actual day that I was my last day. And then it felt like everything started to fall apart. And I was like, all these contracts I had lined up they're just fading. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? And so I had to realize, some key things in that moment that you brought out, like leaning in to this understanding of why did I do this in the first place? And really recognizing how to navigate that. And so I want to talk to that person right now for just a moment, Sasha, who said yes, but they're in that moment where they made that decision and it doesn't look pretty right now. It looks a little gloomy. What would be some of the things that you would say to them in
You know
that
what?
in that part? As a coach, you already know like some of the pieces of what they need to succeed. So if you could just have that coaching moment with them right now, what would that look like? Please go ahead.
It's a great question, Servola. And I would say don't give up too early. You know, when I was in high school, there was a motivational speaker, and I don't remember much, but I do remember he used to say, "Mountain, get out of my way." Whether you need to climb up it, go under it, around it, move it, whatever it takes, don't give up too early. Remember your why, remember that belief in yourself, lean on other people's courage, get the doubters out of your brain as well. There
Mhm.
there will be people for the best of reasons who are worried for you on your behalf that will try to hold you back in those moments, and that can amplify those moments of fear and that loss of courage and belief in yourself.
Mm.
And you have to cling to some of those things. So in our family we did a number of things, including, a vision board. We put specific goals up on our whiteboard and that were measurable as well. What was the minimum we needed to bring in as a family each month in order to break even? What was our aspirational goal to get to each month? And what would be the goal that would, validate our successes? And so each step of the way, we had these very specific goals tied to those finances, also tied to quality of life and what we were able to achieve as a result of having freedom rather than being tied to an employer. And those milestones have been super helpful as well because when nothing else, felt like it was going right, or if I lost sight of the the progress we had made, and I do, I'm always asking what's next. I'm sure you feel the same. So we
Yep.
lose sight of where we're at, right? Or where we were. And it's really helpful for me to have some of those metrics in place so that I can realize, oh, hang on a second. I'm not where I want to be, but
Mhm.
I am certainly not where I was, and I am certainly making strides in the right direction. Not every day, not every instance, but enough of them that we are moving the ball down the field and we're going to be okay. We just lean in, keep tackling it. Don't give up too soon. Have some exit strategies though. I mean,
Yes.
again, the world is a crazy place right now, and it has been for quite some time. There's a lot of chaos. So with that in mind, we also try to guard against the unexpected as much as we're able to possibly, and not get too silly, but keep leaning in, keep working on that mountain, whatever that is for you, and don't be afraid of just stepping back. And I'm kind of short, so I have to look up, but I put my hands on my hips, and of course, in Colorado, surrounded by mountains, put my hands on my hips, and I'll yell at mountain, get out of my way.
I love it. I love it. It's amazing to me. Number one, thank you so much for having the courage to really step into your destiny and to really do this in such a way that it's a unifying effect in your family, and I can tell that your family is pivotal in all the decisions that you make. And so for me, like I that resonates with me because my husband and I, when I made the step to do this, my family was a part of this journey with me. And I think that a lot of times, especially with a lot of entrepreneurs that I've spoken to over the years that have navigated through this journey of entrepreneurship, or just people navigating through life itself, we all have those moments where we have this aspirational thing that we believe that we really want to do. And then we have to figure out how we're going to lean into that and really turn that idea or that vision that we see into something more concrete and put a plan to it, right? And strategize around it and be very strategic in what needs to happen. And then from that strategy, just really being willing to say, okay, I'm going to make adjustments to achieving this goal where it makes sense. Like when COVID hit, there were a lot of people who had to do what we call pivot now. We had to make these major pivots for their business and think about business differently. And those who were innovative, you would see that they were the first adapters or adopters of technology and doing things, allowing their creativity to come to the forefront. But then there were those who were struggling a little bit in that process. And so they had to really navigate through what that was going to look like and really take a moment to get their breath, so to speak, so that they can figure out this is how I'm going to do this, but really turn down the noise, taking a moment to turn down the noise. So I love how you're really challenging the listeners and the viewers to really take a moment to really turn down the noise and just level set and recognize that things may not look the way that you intended for them to look. Like there is not this, you know, magical wand that we can all just boop, wave and get to the place where we want to go. There's going to be some ups and downs along the way. And you know this, Sasha, because you're now the CEO of Economic Catalyst, working with communities to navigate massive transition, especially those moving away from fossil fuel dependence. And you started out talking about this conversation about the miners and coal miners and how you all did surveys and that journey was just a part of this piece where you felt passionate and felt a calling to lean into to really affect change in a community. And I want to know, how does your personal courage to say yes really show up in the strategic advice that you give to governments, to regions, to organizations that are facing economic uncertainty?
Sure. Thank you for the question. I think the big word here is empathy. If
Mm,
I hadn't gone through my own very chaotic, much shorter time frame, much less well supported transition, I don't think that I would have the credibility that I have today as a
mm,
result.
yeah.
When I can sit across the table from somebody who is not quite certain of their future, but they know that their options for staying where they're at are gone, and I can walk them through, share a little bit of my story, and provide them with advice, it really makes a difference to be able to have a lived experience, real empathy for the situation. So I'd love to share with you at least one example of a business that very quickly I had the opportunity to provide technical assistance to. I have their permission to speak. It's called
Yes.
High Altitude Geothermal. And this is a whole family of people who worked generationally in the coal mine, led by Matt Cooper, the patriarch, who is a veteran, US veteran as well. And we sat down very early in 2024. And I was quite honest with them. I was still starting my economic recovery core training. And I was coming with the knowledge I had as an entrepreneur and having been through this recent transition. I was able to advise them on critical steps in and in part things that maybe other business advisors might have missed. Specifically, I asked them about the status of their family dynamics.
Mm,
Was everybody included in the conversation? How were people feeling? Matt was ready to say goodbye to Cole, and it was in the rear view, in his words. But were the rest of his family ready to make that leap? Had they done their internal work as a family unit in order to discuss some of the challenges they would be facing? Because as I said to Matt, it would be sad for me to know that they had built an amazing new business leaning out of fossil fuel into renewable energy, and yet to not also bring their entire family through this change as vibrant as it was when I met them. So to really prioritize and think about what is the most important to them, and that for them is their family connections, their family ties. And so part of the homework was to really be thoughtful about what would the business structure look like? How would they navigate those moments of pure fear and panic collectively as a family? And I'll be honest and say that one of the reasons I could have that conversation is because my husband and I had to navigate through that 6 months prior. It was
Wow.
very recent. You know, when I started showing up as a boss, not only at my workplace, but now my workplace is my home, and I couldn't turn it off. I wasn't turning it off. My husband and I had some, interesting conversations to be had, and
Hey, don't worry, you're not
we
by
leaned in.
yourself.
We leaned in. I'm happy to say we actually officially had our official marriage ceremony on July 1st of this year. Long story there, but interruptions from COVID, etc. But we are stronger than we've ever been. We affirmed that with our ceremony on July 1st of this
I love
last
it.
year. And we were loving and leaning in hard, but we are doing it together. And it was something that we had to confront and have conversations around and over. It so again, this is just one example of how the lived experience of my own very fast and messy transition has been helping me serve the communities that I'm within. And hopefully, I'm starting to roll out some infrastructure so that I can help other communities because I think we're seeing the just transition wave happening throughout our nation and around the globe as we are confronted by the need for major economic changes to address climate concerns, to address the way we work in general, new
Yes.
economies. And with that expertise and lived experience that I have, I believe that now I'm prepared to serve in a better way and more communities than the ones that I am a part of now. So it's a super exciting time for me to vision Economic Catalyst and where we go next with it.
I love it. I love it. So you said so many things in there that really stuck with me and really summing it up. That it's never too late. You know, you made this radical transformation, and that alone challenges so many different narratives that people are facing. And so for folks who are listening right now who feel like time is against them, or they may feel like it's too late for them, I think it's also for us to important for us to recognize that you may be facing, financial responsibilities that may be a challenge, but building the right plan and then recognizing, being realistic about what could go wrong, not from the perspective of, oh my God, it's going to go wrong, and letting fear turn up the noise so that you walk away from this opportunity, but recognizing that there's going to be these moments where things are going to be a little rocky. And if you are prepared in advance of those moments, it makes it that much easier. It doesn't mean that you're going to be prepared for everything. Like I'm sure Sasha and her family, like, wait a minute, 33 cents in the account. I wasn't expecting that to be the situation here. But recognizing that, you know, as you're walking this journey, and you're moving in this space, that there's going to be this opportunity for you to step through those challenges with the courage that's necessary to really get to the place where you won't stay stuck. And so I want to, I mean, we've had so much great conversation today, Sasha. I want to thank you for your honesty, for your courage, for your clarity, for your story. It reminds us that fear doesn't disqualify us. It often confirms that where we're standing, even that we're standing at the edge of growth. And if you want to learn more about Sasha and her work and her consultancy, Economic Catalyst, I want you to share a little bit about that work with folks so that they learn a little bit more about you. And we're going to put the information up on the screen so you all can scan it and stay in touch with Sasha and get in touch with her for her work. But Sasha, please tell us a little bit about that and just share one thing that you're most excited about with the work that you're doing with Economic Catalyst right now.
I think it goes to this idea of thriving through fear, learning how to spot opportunity at the most challenging of times. And so that's what Economic Catalyst has been built to do, is to help communities, nonprofits, and businesses find their way through challenges, to find opportunity and the ability to thrive. And we do that in a number of ways, a number of tried and true strategies, really customizing that experience to the particular community, the particular business, or the particular nonprofit. We have just launched economiccatalyst.co, so please feel free to visit there. And we're rolling out new information all of the time. But I'd like to just say that ask I ask myself this from time to time. What was more scary? Leaning in, saying yes, betting on myself, moving forward despite the fear at times, despite the financial struggles, saying yes to the offer to be diminished, to be put in a box, to stay where I was at, to struggle through in that path. And I have to imagine that I would have been pretty unhappy, and the people around me would have suffered just as much, if not more, from being stuck, from having a Sasha that was stuck in a certain place. And now, when I relate to my friends and my family, I am so grateful for those hard lessons and the motivation to change, because I am incredibly excited about the future now. I have momentum and the ability to serve my communities as well as others in more powerful ways. And heck, I'm driving a brand new car. I'm living the life of an entrepreneur where I get to call the shots. I'm building a team of people around me, all of these gifts that I never would have experienced if I didn't say yes and continue to say yes, because there will be times when it gets scary and a little chaotic, and I'll have to return to, why did I do this in the first place? Why do I continue to show up for myself and for the people looking towards my leadership? And I'll, have to dig deep and put my hands on my hips and look up at those mountains and say, "Mountain, get out of my way. No stopping this girl now."
I love it. 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 Listen, family, if you want to learn more about Sasha's work or connect with her consultancy, Economic Catalyst, the QR code is on the screen. Please scan it. Go to her website. We're going to have her information linked in the show notes. And if you're listening today and questioning whether you're worth the risk, let this be your reminder. You are. You absolutely are. Sasha, thank you so much for saying yes to yourself and for helping many others to do the same. I'm excited about having you, and I am looking forward to hearing more about the success that you and the Economic Catalyst team are impacting on communities around the nation and around the world. Thank you so much for all that you do. Oh my goodness. Wow, folks. This has been such an exciting session. I hope you all will go into the comments and just share out what really stuck out to you. All right, family, until next time, say yes to your expertise, say yes to your courage, and yes to the future that you are capable of building. You heard it today. And I'll see you on the next episode of The Power of Yes.